Pacific Standard Time. Some of the most influential music entertainers, models, and influential faces from film and television and entertainment. Also, this month, joining us on HotTopicCelebTV.com, the Alliance Entertainment Hot Topic Celebrity versus Music Indie Showcase, where we have special guests kicking off just like tonight. You will see after this interview a live, in-depth concert performance by Farah Mitha. Tonight, it's the first week of May. And joining us tonight, I welcome you, Farah, to the building.
Hi. Hi.
How are you?
Nice to be with you. I
How are
miss
you?
Toronto.
Why do you miss Toronto? That place, that should be in your rear view mirror, man. No, you always got to keep moving forward, whatnot, and especially you should be grateful that you're not there because you'd be in a friggin' lockdown right now. I mean, not like LA's right now is any better, but
Well, actually, things here are pretty good right now.
Slowly.
I miss Toronto in terms of like I miss certain restaurants and I miss my friends and family. I love living in LA though. I absolutely love living in LA.
So for you,
pandemic-wise, a lot of the population here is already vaccinated. So things are opening up, and the weather allows us to do quite a bit more outdoors than you guys, unfortunately.
Well, I'm in Florida, so I mean we've been open for literally for ever. Like we haven't really shut down here just because DeSantis just doesn't. He's not doing that. He's just like this is a choice you have. You have a choice. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. You want to stay closed, which is to me how it should be. I mean, I know in the time that I was in Toronto, I don't miss that place at all. Like there's literally nothing.
I thought you were in Toronto. I guess
no,
I didn't realize you were in Florida.
No, I haven't been in. I left Toronto. Now, I mean, officially in the sense, number one, I mean, because I always was here. I just had property there because of business. But I literally let that place go about 6 years ago. Like I've only been back maybe twice since then, other than, I mean, for medical reasons and business stuff. But for me, that place, I mean, it had its time for me. I did what I needed to do while I was there. Once I leaving New York, then coming there, which obviously wasn't my choice as a kid, and then started on my journey in LA, did that. Moved around pretty much all over Florida, and this is all. I mean, Florida for me has always been home. I mean, second to where I'm from, which is New York City, but this has been like my second place in a sense. But Toronto for me, I mean, sayonara, man. That's the way I look at that place, man. It's to me it's actually kind of painful to watch, and just for my friends right now that are there, watching them what they're going through, and seeing how the city has changed so much. And I mean, right now, to me, I don't see any end in sight because they just announced that they're extending the lockdown even longer.
Yeah, so, the cases are pretty bad there with the variants.
So tonight we're going to kick it off. I want to take on your viewers on an in-depth journey for those who don't know Farah Mitha. I want you first to tell the audience and the listeners who you are, where you're from, and then we will start from there.
Okay. Well, as you said, my name is Farah Mitha. I was born and raised in Ottawa, Canada, and went to school at Queen's University in Kingston, and then I moved to Toronto, which was a dream of mine to be in a big city. And then I lived in Toronto for a while, and I started doing music there. I have a master's degree in physical therapy. That's what I did in school. So I was doing that, and I was on my way to med school, actually.
Wow, okay.
When I decided to derail and start doing music. So I was actually sitting in a med school interview, which was going really well. Mm-hmm. And when I left it, I started praying that I don't get in, because I was like, oh, this is the one time, like, this is going to be my chance to try the creative route. And if for whatever reason it doesn't work, I can always go back to medicine. So I kind of pivoted, started doing both, but then eventually more and more music, and then eventually moving to LA. And I just kind of haven't looked back. And now in building Firefly World, I'm trying to kind of merge and find a home for all my different passions and talents including health and fitness and healing,
Okay.
but also music and songwriting and speaking and all that stuff. So my life's been an interesting journey of many pivot transitions. My sound musically, I like to call it soulful world pop. I've also done devotional music for my
Hold
religious
that thought. You're
community.
frozen a little bit. Hold on. You're frozen.
Oh.
Hold on. Okay, now you're good. Continue.
Okay. So I've also done devotional music for my religious community, which has been an interesting journey. And it's taken me to perform all across the world, Dubai, Lisbon. In my previous artist life, I've performed in Jamaica and in the US and Mexico. Also, I've had such an incredible journey following my dreams. Now, am I kind of like sitting here having achieved everything that I always wanted? No, but if I look back, it's been such an incremental journey, and there was nothing I could have done that would have challenged me in the ways that this career path has challenged me. And so I graduated pretty young as a physical therapist or as a physiotherapist, and it was hard for me because I was kind of behind and because I got in really early with very few prerequisites. And so I remember graduating being like, oh, this is great, you know, like at 22 I have a professional degree and I can, you know, make a good amount of money if I, you know, working full time. But it didn't feel like it was enough. You know, ever since I was a kid, I knew that whatever it was that I was going to do in my life, I wanted it to serve and help like millions of people at a time if possible. And back then, like my idols were like Michael Jackson and Oprah and even Princess Diana. Like they were all using their platforms to do good in the world and spread love, spread unity, spread stories that help people feel connected. So I was like, okay, there's something with, you know, music and art and TV that can build that platform and then and can influence people, inspire people. So from when I was, you know, young teenager, that's kind of what I wanted to do. And then I went down the medical route in high school. You know, I grew up in a South Asian family, so school was super important and a must. So I went down the academic route, the medical route, and then when I finally was like living on my own in Toronto and making my own money, I was like, let me take a risk and just pivot, which was very risky. But I think I also still did it in a smart way because I was working part-time all throughout it.
What year was that? What year was that when you basically like made the jump from Ottawa to Toronto?
Well, I went to school first in Kingston.
Okay.
And then I moved to Toronto after I graduated. So that was a while ago. And then recently been in LA. So it's LA is a whole different beast. Like,
it's a different beast, man. That's why I mean
I love it because the least talented person here is super talented, you know, and takes it so seriously. At least in the circles that I've been in, and the people that I've met, like just in a regular dive bar, the quality of the music and the musicians are stellar. You know, like they have these things called pro jams here, where it could be like a given Sunday night or Monday night, and all the musicians that are usually on tour with like Stevie Wonder, Justin Timberlake, Christina Aguilera, who else? Beyonce, like they all just come into this little bar and they do this jam session, and then whoever's in the crowd, it's kind of like a karaoke night, but with professional musicians.
Okay.
And so when I first started to come, it was super intimidating. I was like, I'm just gonna watch because these people are like so legit. It took me a while to build up my confidence, even in LA, to be able to perform or be willing to perform in LA. So it's been a really interesting journey from like being in Ottawa to now being here. But I reflect on it, and I'm so blessed and so grateful to have made that decision to give it all up and you know, sacrifice that stability, the money, all that to follow my dream.
Well, if you remember when we met, I said to you from the very first time I heard your voice, I was like, what the F are you doing in Toronto? Like, you need to get out. And you were like, oh, I'm like, no, you need to get out because it's like, understand if it was the 90s of Toronto, I would have been like, okay, you're in a good space, because that's when I was there. Like that was the Mecca time of the city where everything was popping. But then from the 2004 mark, after that, everything started to decline, and that's what, like, even for me, like I made that final decision where I was like, I'm done. Like 2004 was like it's had its run, but it's time, in the sense, number one, to really leave this place in my rearview mirror. And I, as I said, I had properties in LA, and I had properties in Florida, I had properties in Toronto, but then it started to, like, everything started to shift. The whole, not just like the city, but just the world, like how social media was changing things, and the connection part with people, and just in general, like and it's not where I say that like LA is the place to be, because, as you said, and I know this because I've been there forever, it's a different animal. It's even for me, like coming from the East Coast, from New York, and I came to LA in the early 90s, and it was like a culture shock, because like where New York is very fast paced. Everyone's on a mission. Like when you walk up the street, they're on a mission. They're either going to a business meeting, they're going to work, they're doing something. Where LA, it's like, unless you are into the party scene or you're into the drinking scene, there's not a lot of focus unless you're there for specific work. And that's why it's good for you that you said, you're able to connect with people that have that mindset, because it's very, very hard. And especially now, with the way the economy is, the way the world is, if you're out there and you're not literally busting your ass, you're dead. Like you're literally going to be homeless or whatever, because the market now to live is so expensive. So you can't be fucking around. You can't be playing games and be like, hey, you know what, I'm going to, just be out here, not taking it seriously. So for me, when I finally heard that you made that jump, I was so happy, because I was like, this is one, you're just too talented to be in a small city, for starters. And two, it's just that I know what you're capable of and what you are as an artist, because, as I said, exactly what you said, earlier, that your hope is to inspire, like Princess Di, and have those things. And that's the thing, like, it's been missing from music for so long, where you have artists now that just make music. But there's not it's not like the 90s where there was soul and passion and, that thing in the core. Now it's just like, okay, record labels are screwing me. Streaming is screwing me. Social media is screwing me. So you know what? Let me just get what I can right now. I don't care whether it's good. I don't care whether, a million people like it or don't like it, as long as I get music out. But then the problem is that it's become saturated, because people don't even know what's good anymore. Like they
become saturated with like very gimmicky things that last for like a month.
And then they jump onto something next. So for you, like, what was it like for you when you made that jump, like from Ottawa to Toronto? And even not just in the sense of like the music aspect, but like, what was for you, the moment that you decided, hey, I needed to make a different direction choice in pursuing, as you said, the medical field? And also, when was it the first time that you realized that you could sing and you had some talent?
Okay, a lot of good questions there. And okay, so I'll start with when I realized I could sing. That was earlier on. And it actually kind of started with, like, I didn't even know I could sing yet, but I think I was in grade 1. And my mom tells me that my first grade teacher told her that I have a very powerful voice and that I should be in the choir. So my mom let me be in the choir. And then I was also in like church choir, sort of. Like our church choir. So when in my childhood, I grew up singing in choirs. And when I went to high school, I joined the big choir and the chamber choir, and we traveled with the choir. So that was kind of where I started with singing. But like I grew up with 90s music, and I loved my Mariah Carey and Whitney and Alicia and Toni Braxton. And so I would like tape them off the radio and buy the CDs, and Alanis Morissette from Ottawa, so I would have all these songs, and I would kind of trained. I never took singing lessons until I got to Toronto, which was, you know, in my 20s. So I kind of just taught myself to sing, and I knew I wanted to sing as high as Mariah Carey and as low as Toni Braxton. So I would just sing it over and over and over and over again and just try and try and try. And I kind of in the middle of high school, when I met some friends that played music, like played instruments, instead of hanging out with people in high school, because I didn't really fit in high school, to be honest. I had some friends that were actually in college in Ottawa, and they would invite me to hang out with them on the weekend. So basically every single weekend, like Friday, Saturday night, I was hanging out with a bunch of college kids that would just play music all weekend. So I'd sit there and I'd first go listen to them sing, and they even opened my mind to like so many different kinds of music too, like things that I never, like not R&B pop, but more like rock, alternative, world music stuff. And so when they started to recognize and let me sing with them is kind of when I was like, hey, maybe I'm kind of good at this. And then I would participate in variety shows or talent shows. And, you know, people would always say how good I was. So I started to develop a sense of like, okay, maybe this is something I could do. And I loved it, right? When I started, it was just that I loved it. For me, singing was venting, was an emotional expression to help me heal, you know? And then when I went to college or university, I would do more like coffee house nights and more variety shows and talent shows. And I just kept getting good feedback about my voice. And obviously I have an ear, so I knew that I could sing on pitch, but I knew I had a lot to learn. And then I moved to Toronto, I started working. And a friend of mine from university, he was a rapper, and he needed a singer for a hook for a song that he was writing. And he was like, hey, do you want to sing it? Excuse me. And I was like, sure. So he took me to this like home studio, not his, but some other guy's home studio. And it was my first time in the studio, and I laid down the hook, and then he sent me the track. And then a week later, and this is after my whole med school interview scenario where I was like, I want to do music, but I don't know how. I didn't have any family in music. I had no connections, nothing. I was posting on Craigslist like, hey, any bands looking for singers or any producers need an artist or whatever. And it turned out some sketchy results. So that was an interesting path. But I remember going to the beer market in Toronto on the Esplanade, right? I don't know if you remember that spot. And I remember watching this girl, and they were doing like, you know, a bunch of cover songs for the crowd. I just looked at her, and it was pure bliss. And I'm like, I just want to sing. I just want to sing and songwrite. So then this thing happened with my friend, and then a week later, I was walking out of my apartment building, and this guy was walking in, and we kind of crossed paths before. We never said anything to each other. So for some reason, I just looked at him like, oh, hey, you look kind of tired. And he goes, yeah, I'm just coming from the studio, and you know, and I was like, oh, what do you do? He's like, I'm an artist manager. And he goes, well, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a singer. And he goes, are you good? I was like, yeah. He goes, how good? I'm like, I don't know. Like, he's like, rate yourself from 1 to 10. And I'm like, well, how do I rate myself from 1 to 10? Who's a 10? He was like, I don't know. You could be a 10. I'm like, so in my head, I'm like doing the calculation. I'm like, okay, if Whitney is a 10 and if Mariah is a 10, where do I couldn't do the math. I was like, I don't know. This is too stressful of a question. And he was like, all right.
That's why you go above the 10.
Sorry?
That's why you go above the 10. You say you're a 15.
I know, but I didn't have that confidence at all. So he was like, do you have anything you can send me? Now, the weekend before, I had just done those tracks, my first tracks ever in the studio. I'm like, actually, I do have something to send you. Sent it to him. We set up a meeting. He heard me sing for like, he came to my place and he was like, hey, okay, sing something. So I started singing Whitney, and he cut me off after like 20 seconds. And I was like, oh, that is either good or bad. Because you know, like how Canadian Idol or American Idol or whatever would work? Like when they cut you off, it's either they're super impressed and they just know, or they're like, you suck. So I was super nervous. And he's like, okay. He's like, you're good. And I go, okay. So we started talking. So that was Shug, as you remember.
Yeah.
And so he became my manager for about a good 8, almost 10 years. And, you know, signed to his label and all that. And that's kind of what happened before moving to LA. So, you know, we did a lot. We went to Jamaica. We did a ton of stuff in Toronto and in Canada, performed in the States, and really had a good fun run.
Mm-hmm.
Collaborated with Shock Lair and with Egyptian and Fahrenheit, and opened for Sean Paul. So lots of cool stuff happened in Canada. But then, I was lucky to have you guys, like you and Matt and people like that. That is, I remember having a pretty serious conversation with Matt Murray, where he was like, "You should totally go to LA," because he was just starting to court LA as well, and go there more, and and obviously Matt is so talented. For me, it was like, of course you should go to LA. You're incredibly talented. I was having more doubts about myself, but he was like, no. He was like, with your personality and your talent,
and that's exactly, and that's what's surprising. Because I mean, a lot of times I would hear it, and I'm like, how is this girl? I mean, literally, you look like a star. You're one of the most beautiful women, literally, on the planet. You have the full package. You have a voice. You have the marketability, and that's why I'm like, how does someone with that much talent not see what everybody else sees? And it's always been surprising me about you, like that you don't. You second guessed yourself, and I'm like, you don't need to second guess yourself. Like, if you've got that talent, I know people that have, way less talent, way less skill sets, but they fall on their face because they're just willing to try. They're just willing to friggin' take the gamble. So, like, continue what you're saying though, like in regards to
and that's what I'm saying. I was really lucky to have you guys around, because to counteract any of the and not criticism I was getting around my voice or anything, but kind of what we were doing wasn't authentic to me. Like that whole Ferrari phase, it wasn't me. Like that Barbie doll, like, with the extensions and all the makeup and extravagant outfits and whatever. It was cool. Like, it was a fun character to play, but it wasn't me.
You shut it down.
I always imagined, like, when I would do music, that it would be me. So when I moved here, I got to start over. Like I didn't have any management. I didn't have any label. I was like, I can be whoever I want. So now I'm going to be Farah. And, now that's been the journey here. And along the way, I'm sure a lot of, members in the audience will resonate with, you grow up a certain way. Like my parents had parents that were super critical. So my parents were more critical, and nobody wanted me pursuing arts. Nobody. So I kind of had to do that against the grain and against people being like, you gave up med school to sing, like in a bar or whatever it was. And so like you have these doubts that just keep piling on you from other people. And that's why I keep saying, as part of Firefly, I was like, it's so important. Your environment is so important.
But you understand why you have those because this is a thing that I was saying to you before, why I don't miss that place, because that's all it was noise. It's like, it got to a point for me, because I was doing, like, even when I was, literally controlling the entire nightlife scene, I was doing my Hollywood thing. I just wasn't telling anybody about it. I was flying back and forth literally every weekend. And people were like, well, where are you going? I'm like, don't worry about it. Like, you'll know when it's time for you to know what the fuck I'm doing, because I wanted to see who's riding with you, like truly riding, because real friends, real people, the real people that are down for you, they want you to grow. They see something, and they're like, yo, you're in the wrong place. It's time for you to take your wings and soar. And that's what I was trying to tell you, because I'm like, the longer you stay in that environment, it's like quicksand. It starts to choke you, where you're just like, okay, what do I do? And then you're hearing people, you exactly what you said. You're giving up med school to do music. And it's like, when you're good, the problem with that city is that they want to make you feel like you got to apologize for being good at what you do. And it's just like,
it's a Canadian thing. I know.
And if you're going here, and I tell people, it's like, if you're going here, a lot of times as people, they always, and I've said this to numerous Canadian artists in meetings all the time, because I go back as far as Maestro, and he's a good friend of mine. And Maestro left, did his thing in the States. Same with Snow, did his thing, went to the States. But the biggest mistake I tell every artist is, when you go, don't look back, because they're always wanting to be where, I'm from Canada, and I'm the Canadian artist, and they're going to give me love, and they want to rep their hometown. And I'm like, they don't give a shit. Like, they really don't give a shit until you actually make it. And then when you make it, unless you are consistent, like you have things one after another where you're staying relevant, like Drake. Because in the beginning, everyone hated Drake because he just sounded like trash. But he was getting the endorsements from Eminem, from Jamie Foxx. So you can't lose when you have those people pretty much doing your promotion for you.
Right.
It's possible.
Yeah.
But his whole thing was, let me collaborate, because if you look at the first 2 albums of his, they were brutal. But the tracks that were good were collaborations when he had the bigger artists on there. And that's why I say for artists like you who are starting on their journey, it's like you have to realize that the market in Canada is so small for artists. Literally, and then you've got, of course, you've got these program directors at these various 3, if not 2, radio stations that, unless you have a DJ or somebody in there that's going to play your record at nighttime,
or these got a major label.
And even if the thing is, even if you join a major label, unless you, that label and the record company and the studio that they're working with, everything is about positioning for these studios, for these companies. So unless they have like some brand or company, they're like, we need to have you play or do this at a certain time, that's when your music gets played. Otherwise, your shit's getting paid at 2:00 in the morning when someone's just driving home, falling asleep, and unless you're up, you're not hearing it. And that's why some of it was like, you have to realize you have a small window. Come in, make your noise, and then have an objective. But so many people have this thing of like, well, because of course, in the States, it's a bigger pond. It's a way bigger pond than Canada, but there's that fear factor for them because they're like, well, how am I going to make a dent when there's so many other artists?
It's overwhelming and it's intimidating.
But I tell people like this, the reason why it's intimidating, because every one of those artists is looking at everybody else rather than looking at themselves, rather than finding that internal thing to say, what makes me different? And what makes me different is there could never be another Farah. Like you or you. I could put you right now on the radio against 10 artists that are in the top 10 right now, and you'd blow them away. But because of the fact that the music industry now, compared to when I was in it full throttle, was where now they play the shit out of something to death, to the point where it's almost like when you see someone get hypnotized with a drug, where it's like you hate this song, but you hear it so many freaking times, and it's stuck in your head, and then it grows on you, and then you're singing it, and you're like, okay, well, I guess the song's not that bad. And meanwhile, the song was trash, but you've just been programmed because these program directors that put out the music on the stations, and that's where I say it's like I try to put artists, what I call into, like when I'm taking a new artist on, I try to put them into a stress test. People are like, what do you mean by that? And I always look at the music industry, it's basically like jumping into a pool when you can't swim with no life preserver. So you're either got 2 choices. You paddle like hell to stay afloat, otherwise you're going to drown. So you really only have 2 options. I can keep paddling until someone comes along, like a manager or an agent or a brand manager, that throws me that friggin' lifeline and says, okay, I got you, but understand, he can hold on to you. If you have a manager, he can hold on to you with one arm. But if you don't start kicking with your feet, you're literally going nowhere. You're just standing in the same position, paddling. And that's why I said is that when you made that jump, you know, for you, like, what was the moment when you said, okay, for yourself, you know, from deciding to leave Toronto, what was that moment? Like, what was that thing where you were like, I got to get the fuck out of here?
It was a culmination of things. One, I felt like we were swimming against the tide. in terms of strategy, because right when we started was when the music industry shifted. And everything became digital, and artists were getting signed based on their fan bases and more organic, like YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. But the strategy we were using was that of what would get an artist signed to a major label like 5 years prior.
Okay.
So, you know, a ton of PR and songs with like big collaborations and big music videos and, you know, trying to get radio and all that. So the strategy we were using was just not working. And I feel like we should have shifted to a much more organic approach, which was again nobody's fault. And in fact,
Explain that. Sorry to cut you up. Explain that for the artists that don't, or the people that are on the live that don't understand what you mean by organic approach.
Well, like building your fans from the ground up. So back in, you know, like how you were saying, when music was popping in the 90s, an artist would sign, a label would sign an artist, right? They didn't have to have anything going on except for talent. The label would take over, sign the artist, find them the right songs to suit them, help them find their identity, do all the marketing, do all the releases, set up all the collaborations. The artist had to just show up and sing, or maybe write, make sure they, you know, look good and show up and are on time and are friendly in interviews and whatever. But that's all they had to do. But in 2008, 2009, 2010, things shifted. Now labels weren't signing artists anymore to develop them. They only wanted to sign from 2008 or 2009 onwards, right? Labels only wanted to sign artists that already had a following. And to this day, labels only want to sign artists that basically don't need them. You've done your own marketing, you have your own fan base, you've figured yourself out, you've done your own artist development, you have your own everything, you have your own team. Then they'll be like, okay, I'll sign you, maybe throw a little extra cash on your endeavor. And that is the more organic approach. And on one hand, everything becoming digital leveled the playing field. So now artists, you know, like Macklemore or Chance the Rapper or whatever, independent artists could bypass the situation that used to be reserved for only labels, right? But so on one hand, it leveled the playing field. On the other hand, it oversaturated everything. And if you are an artist who has a ton of talent, but you don't really have the right guidance or the right team, you're not really going to get much love unless you know how to build your own fan base and you understand that it's not about pleasing everybody. It's about finding your niche and pleasing your niche. And so, you know, for me at that time, I was like, I felt like I just didn't know who I was anymore because we were going down this path and I'd started to come to the States a bit more. But we went to New York several times, came to LA, joined a few like artist mastermind circles that were based in America. And people just started being like, yo, you're really talented. And like, you have the whole package. Everybody's been saying to me for like 10 years.
I've been saying the same thing, man. You do.
And so to me, that's so frustrating because I'm like, well, what's wrong? Like, what's holding this back? And then what I started to hear was like, but I just don't know if your branding is you. Like, I just don't know if Ferrari matches your personality. Like, you're so much more authentic. You're so much nicer. You're so much sweeter. You're so much more intelligent than your brand shows you to be.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, so that was it. So that was one of the major things that started to come into my purview that started to, you know, turn the circles of like, maybe I should start shifting in a different direction. Then, and this was right after I opened for Sean Paul. So it was like a bit of a difficult decision because I was like, okay, I'm getting stuff here. And like how you're saying, like artists cling to Canada or they come back to Canada because you've spent that time building the fan base. People appreciate you at some point, right? Like maybe the industry doesn't, but your fans do. And I remember like opening up for Sean, especially in Toronto, the crowd that showed up for me, they were singing my songs. They were so amazing. I had my dancers and everything. It was just, it was one of the best feelings, right? Because they were there also for me. Yes, of course they were there for Sean, but like there were people that came for me. And that felt so good. So that made it a bit tricky. But then a few months later, I was asked to perform in Dubai with these big Bollywood producers. Doing a theme song for this massive sports tournament. And so I went to Dubai, and by this time I had cut my hair, so I wasn't wearing the extensions anymore. So I already felt more like myself.
Okay.
And I'm there, and they introduced me as Farah. And my cousin was there, and she was like, you know what? I think it's time for you to move on from Ferrari and just, you know, be yourself.
Do you know how hard that was
also
sometimes?
More of a world music vibe, and everybody in that crowd was like, oh my God, you know, they were so like attracted to me from me being me. And so it just felt right. And then, like I said, with you and with Matt at the time being like, you know, LA, LA, LA. My brother lived in LA, so I was starting to visit a little bit more too and just get my feet wet. And I was like, you know what? I don't really have anything that's holding me in Toronto anymore. Let me just go try. So I tried, and I came here, and like I said, I could decide who I wanted to be. I touched down, and like nobody knows me. Nobody knows me.
And it's a great feeling when you have that reset
It was very
button.
freeing.
Yeah, it is. It's to me, as I always say to people, like, you know, if you're in a place, because I mean, whether you're in LA, whether you're in Toronto, whether you're in New York, whether you're in Miami, like, I mean, I've lived everywhere. I've moved more times than I can count in different cities where I've had to hit that reset button.
Yeah.
But the great part about it, when you have a reset button, I look at, I've always tried to tell people, like, for me, I look at the entertainment industry as like a soldier going into war. Every place you go to is a new objective, a new mission. So it's like you have one focus. What am I doing here? What is my purpose? And because just like in war, either you shoot them or they shoot you and kill you. And the industry is the exact same, because it's either you're literally, when I say, dodging bullets daily in the industry as an artist, an independent artist, because you have so many things you have to think about: money, living, music, sleep,
Branding,
friends,
branding,
hustling. Like, everything is being thrown at you, and you're like the Matrix, sort of like dodging everything. But the one thing, as I said, when you are able to start over and hit the reset button, as you said, you could be your authentic self. Because I'll admit, like, I mean, I love the Ferrari aspect, but it was damn hard to know what to call you, because I was like, Ferrari, Farah. Then you had different handles, and I was like, I can't type this shit. I can't figure out. Then you had Farah, Ferrari. Like, it was just one long ass. I was like, okay, she needs to figure. And the thing was, is that, like, for me, with you, the main reason why I was like, I mean, if I had a choice, because for me, I was just like, get out. I don't care where you get out to. But if I had a choice to place you somewhere with your sound, it wouldn't even been LA. It would have been either New York or Atlanta. That's the place, to me, that you would have. And I still think at some point that you should take a gamble and go out to both of those places for 3-6 months and dabble, because, one, because of your look, two, because of your sound. You have an old school R&B vibe, and you've got, you know, obviously your originals are very soulful, and they've got that more mature vibe. But when you do R&B, girl, it literally sends chills in my body, because it takes me back to that good feeling time, that good feeling energy of just when you didn't have a care in the world, you know? So for you, like, when you again, you made the jump, what would you say has been, as an independent artist in a new city, the biggest hurdle for you?
I feel like I've been my biggest hurdle, my mind, you know, coming here. And to be honest, like, I'm glad I didn't come even a year or two earlier, because I don't think I would have had the confidence to kind of settle here amongst so much talent. But because I was willing to just surrender when I started coming and just see what would happen, I had no expectations. I was like, I'm just gonna go try. And I love the city. Like, the other thing I wanted to do was make sure that I was moving here out for reasons other than music. You know, like, being close to my brother has been amazing. Being in sunshine is like
Best feeling in the world
for me, very healthy for me. Being near the ocean, like, it's just been like, there's so many other parts of my life dreams that are being fulfilled being in LA. I was like, okay, I'm gonna come for a variety of reasons. So I'm gonna release the expectations that I have to make it in music and just come here and find myself, you know? So that sent me off to a pretty good start. And then you know, I had moments of like being a little intimidated and overwhelmed, and then meeting amazing people and feeling really encouraged, and then eventually it kind of shifted where I'm like, okay, I'm somewhere new. I just have to build my reputation here. And there's artists that are insanely talented. I'm talking like on the level of Beyonce and Bruno Mars.
Oh, I know. I've heard
Michael, but that are still just singing in bars for like $100, $200 a night, you know? And so sometimes it's hard to be motivated or self-motivate even when you know that people that are even 10 times more talented than you and have been here 10 times longer than you and are still in a certain area, you kind of start feeling like, oh my God, how am I ever going to get anywhere? That person is not like on Beyonce level right now. What, and I just got, you know what I mean?
But do you want to know why though? They're not on that level?
Tell me.
Okay. The main reason why, and again, I know exactly what, because as I said, I have a lot of very talented, incredible musicianal friends in Los Angeles who should be selling out arenas all around the fucking country because they're that good. They're better than, almost as I said, I mean, even you are better than half the shit that's on the radio right now. But the main problem is two things. One, what you said about yourself. You have been your biggest blockade, obstacle of not believing in the fact of, okay, you know what, because I get it. When you're in a new city, in a new place, and you don't have that person really hammering in your ear every day, Farah, you got this.
Yeah.
You got this.
Yeah.
You start to like, did I really make the right decision? The second reason is that most of those artists don't seem to understand that they're still in the mentality of how it was in the 90s, where you, as you said, they find that label finds them and then they start doing everything for them. And they're like, okay, I just got to be an artist and show up. And I tell people all the time, you have a choice now. The business has shifted. You can either be, and it doesn't matter whether you're an artist, actor, model, you can be an artist or you can be a brand. Period. There's no in between anymore. You have to make a decision. If you're an artist, it's like an actor. You're looking for a job, you're searching for a job, you're praying for a job, you're waiting for a job. You book a gig here, and then you're like, okay, I booked a gig. And it's like, for example, you've been able to work with a lot of incredible artists, but this is the problem with artists that work with incredible artists. While they work with that one artist, that big artist, that's the time, that's the moment, that's the situation where I talk about before, the stress test. It's capitalizing in that moment, that pressure, because it's like when you're on that level and you're surrounded by someone that's in a higher level, it's supposed to level you up, where you're like, okay, I'm with the big boys now. Like, I'm with the big boys. Like I have this on my resume. You have Sean Paul on your resume. But instead of capitalizing in that moment, they just sort of ease back into the couch again and be like, okay, well, let me ride that wave for a little while. But it's like, no, you got to ride the wave hard.
Yeah.
And ride it in the sense, number one, because the music business moves so fast.
Yeah.
People's thought process of who they like, who they don't, because even now, people don't even know what the fuck they like when music. They're told what they like. They're literally told, you're going to listen to Justin Bieber Peaches on Instagram 100 times a day. And now, what do you hear on Instagram? On every girl's fucking feed. You got my beat down in Georgia. That's my shit all day long. So it's like the biggest hurdle that they get is that they don't seem to understand that if you can't brand yourself and you don't know how, then you hire somebody that does. You reach out and you say, hey, I need help. Literally, I need help. But the problem is, when these people are lacking the motivation themselves, it makes people like me who can say, look, I've got 2.5 million subscribers that I can give you the black book to. Like, you literally give me whatever the hell you want me to put out. We get it out for you and it's there. But if I've got to motivate you to push your own shit, why the hell would I want to do it? Why would I want to come work with that? And that's the mentality that people have, and especially in LA. LA, in the sense, number one, it's like if you're not providing something already for them to say, hey, let me take this and shop it, they ain't interested, because everyone in LA is on the hustle, trying to survive. It's not friend business.
Right.
It's show business. You show me something and I'll give you the business.
Yeah.
You don't give me anything, I'm not giving you the business. And then people, a year goes by, 2 years go by, and they're still sitting in the same situation, because they're, instead of them sitting there looking and looking at, okay, I got to work on me first. Because if it's not, and you know as well as I do, mental health in this business is a motherfucker. Like it is the biggest thing that we face, because you being a creative person, me being a creative person, I get it when we get into our own thoughts, because when you're not writing music, you're thinking. You're in the room thinking about the next thing. And it's just like, when it's the same thing I tell artists, for example, when you're asking like why they're in the same place, is because when these artists that book that gig, and it could be a big one, they're not thinking about the next gig. They're just like, oh, I'm in this gig, in this moment. It's great. I've got a great opportunity. Okay, but what are you doing with it now? What do you like? That's when you have your PR team. That's when you have your branding. That's when you plant the seeds and you say, okay, and that's what I do with an artist. For example, if I was repping you, if you had done Sean Paul, and literally, let's say, for example, like you and Sean Paul go out for lunch, and people see Sean Paul in the mall, and they're like, oh my God, you know what I would have you fucking do? In that exact moment when all those people are there, I would like, Farah, go up on that stage. I don't care if it's in the mall. I don't care if it's I'd say stand up on the table and fucking sing. Because the beauty about, compared to then to now, what's the first thing people do when they see anything? They pull out their phone. They're your friggin' branders. They're your PR. So if you do something crazy in that moment, within 30 seconds, you're going viral. And that's where I try to tell artists is that you can have all the talent in the world, but the industry doesn't care anymore. They legitimately don't care, because look at the music they're putting out every year. They care about numbers. They care about status. They care about look. They care about all that shit, not really the talent. So for you, it's like, okay, you got to make a decision. You play the game. Like,
well,
you can
like
still.
What you said earlier about making a choice between being an artist and a brand. And so that's, for the last, like, because when I came here, I would say I was soul searching, because I knew that there was no point in doing all that PR and all that marketing like I'd done before if I didn't even know who I was.
100%.
If I didn't know what name I wanted to use, if I didn't know what kind of music I wanted to do, if I didn't know what my, I could meet the best producer ever, the best manager ever, but if I didn't know, that was the mistake I made the first time, is that I didn't know what I wanted. I grew up with so much music. I liked everything from R&B to pop to alternative to rock. I was just like, give me something, I'm going to do it. So at first when I came here, my strategy was like, okay, find a way to live here consistently. Boom, check it off. Get my visa. Boom, check it off. 3, find out who I am, like what I really want to do. So I started working with a ton of writers. I went to the ASCAP conference every year.
Okay.
A bunch of writers, started working with different writers, different producers, and writing different types of songs. And any performance that would come up, no matter what it was, I'm doing it. Let me figure out my voice. Let me figure out what kind of people, what kind of musicians I like to play with. Do I like the acoustic situation? Do I like the band situation? Do I like both? So I was just jumping on everything. The last 2-3 years, I would say I've just been jumping on everything that I can to figure out who I am and what I like. And then this past summer, I threw in an audition for I Can See Your Voice, which was on Fox after The Masked Singer. And when they called me back and they were like, we want to have you on the show. They, further auditions, interviews, whatever, made a character for you. And I was teaching yoga, and so that's how I became the yogi. And so once I knew that episode was coming, I linked up with a coach, and we worked 3 times a week. And I was like, I need to figure out my branding now. And it had been marinating long enough. I'm like, and I was debating between Firefly World and Ferrari, or not Ferrari, but Firefly World and Farah, and using just my name or my whole name and blah, blah, blah. But like, finally I settled on, I am Farah Mitha. I'm just going to be me. And now the journey can begin again. Now I can reset. So then I did a new photo shoot. I redid my website. I put out some songs. I put out a song on the week before the episode was coming out to make sure that people had something to listen to. Since then, I've been playing around with a ton of different types of content, putting out music, like cover videos, and then doing Firefly TV. So that's like, and that was one thing that's really stuck, right? Because, and then, you know, I've been doing it for like 27 weeks now. I think tomorrow will be episode 27.
Wow.
Which is crazy. And it was the way to bring about, because the whole thing, what took me so long is I was trying to figure out how to merge all my passions. You know, I'm like, I have all this, I have so much knowledge in the health and fitness and healing realm. And then there's music. And I've always wanted to use music and use my platform to heal and inspire. So I'm like, how do I bring this together? So that is the purpose of Firefly World. And then, like you said, do you want to be an artist? Do you want to be a brand? And I've had to kind of go back and forth. And I was like, okay, I tried the artist thing. I've been here and I've tried the artist thing. And if that is something that's going to pick up for me, I'm going to roll with it. But in the meantime, I'm going to create my brand. And so that's what this whole Firefly World thing has been about, is creating my brand, creating my people, building my niche. And kind of now, right now, I'm in the process of like doing stuff and seeing what sticks. And then I'm going to, you know, register it and officially launch it. And then there'll be music specifically for Firefly World, which are the songs that I played today, Choosing Hope and Shine. And then there'll be other songs that I do, like love songs or breakup songs or whatever, that are for the artist in me, because it all kind of ties together. So, I mean, that's kind of been my strategy. So, like, you know, when you asked what's my biggest hurdle, it was like me being in my own head, not knowing who I was. But also, like, what I do have to give myself props for is that I had, even though sometimes it didn't feel like I had a strategy, I did.
Okay.
And I've been following it bit by bit by bit. And sometimes I feel like I'm sitting back and waiting for a situation, but, you know, then a friend of mine will be like, you're the hardest working female I know out here in the industry. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I've been hearing that a few times, and my coach is just like, no, you're doing everything right. And I meditate, and the message I'm getting is you're doing everything right. So then it just becomes a matter of patience and surrender, right? Like, I do it because I love it, and I'm letting go of what it needs to look like. And then every once in a while, my coach is like, hey, you need to list what you just accomplished. Like, this is 27 episodes. Like, you've had something substantial to talk about for 27 episodes. Like, that's huge.
But that's the
like,
thing.
oh, yeah, I guess that is a good thing. Or like, you were on that TV show, or you've released these songs, and you tried this, and you did that. And I'm building my reputation here. And so what I would want, like, people to know is that it's not about the end goal. Yeah, my end goal, I want a Grammy. I want a Grammy. I want a world tour, like my own world tour. But most importantly, what I want is to enjoy every single day working towards that. It's not about whether that happens. It's about enjoying the journey there. And that's what Firefly World is about, is that inspiration, connecting to your own spirit, where you're happy every single moment. You're not just happy when you get that goal. And so all of this struggle and challenge and ups and downs, because I've been on some of the biggest stages in the world with like a crowd of 10,000, 50,000 people. And I'm just like, wow, I've been there. I've had a hit song in my community, you know, like maybe not on Billboard, but like people know me and they recognize me, sing the lyrics, and they send me videos. And like I've been through the ups and downs, and now I'm just like, okay. So what happened in Toronto, actually, to go back to that, is just I was not happy anymore. I was doing it for the end goal. I wasn't doing it because I loved it, and that's because I wasn't being me. So now that I've come here, been able to reset and be more me than I've ever been before, I've fallen so hard in love with myself that every moment, it's not all perfect, but every moment is such a blissful blessing. I don't care where it takes me. I have a direction, I have a vision, but I'm just having so much fun doing it that's all that matters.
But this is the thing. I mean, when I say you did it the right way, because I mean, most of the time, and what I love about you, which you don't frustrate me like other artists, because there's some other artists that are, and even with those artists that you're talking about, who are still doing the same thing, working in bars, who are super talented. A lot of times with artists like that, it's not even about them getting in their own way, is that they have a set way. They're just too stubborn to try anything different. It's like, okay, if this hasn't been working, you got nothing to lose but trying something different.
Yeah.
But you get these artists, for example, you know, I'm sure you have art like there's artists that I'm not doing covers. I'm never doing covers. I'm only going to put out original music. And I tell artists like this, even when I say, are you going to be an artist or a brand? Because at the end of the day, for me, branding is not really about like, at least in my experience, is that it's not about like figuring out my niche and figuring out my target market.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could do all those things. But the main question is, are you any good?
Mm-hmm.
Period. You could do all the fucking branding and marketing, but if you're not any fucking good, because some people they think they're good, and that's good to have that confidence.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to realize at some point, if everything, because I mean, for me, I know just in my journey and just people, I'm like, I've never heard of somebody spending money, investing into themselves, no matter what the business is, the entertainment, doing it for like 40 years and not making it in some capacity. It's impossible. It's never happened.
Yeah, it might be different than they originally envisioned. And I think that's the thing too, is like, we have to not let go of expectations, because I think it's really important to dream, but I think it's important to surrender to whatever life was meant for you, like whatever life has for you, because not everybody.
You cut out. Stop. You cut out. You cut out. Your mic cut out. Your mic.
There's way more people
Hold on.
that are
Dial
talented.
that out far. Dial that back because you cut out for about 30 seconds.
So what I'm saying is, like, there's way more people that are talented than there are awards that exist. So we're not necessarily, just because like somebody's super talented, and this is what I had to realize, like just because somebody are super talented and they are still singing in bars, it doesn't mean that they're not fulfilling their purpose. And that's the thing with people here, is they're so amazing and they love what they do. Like, that was what I fell in love with here, is I would go to these bars and I would see these incredible people, and they are just putting their heart into every single note for the audience. You know what I mean? And, it's inspiring. You know, some people get a little more demotivated by it, but some people are so just like, this is what I do. This is my stage right now, and I'm rocking the shit out of it. And that's what I'm going to do. You know, and if something else happens, it happens, but I'm doing it because I love it. And that's the lesson that I've learned from the people here. So, I mean, like I said, it's not about tempering expectations or releasing expectations or like letting go of dreams. It's about, you're one person in this huge puzzle of life, right? You know, the universe has plans for you that you don't even know, and you don't get to know. You might be the catalyst for somebody else. You know, before Obama was president, I'm sure that there were Black politicians that led up to him being able to do what he did. But not every Black politician is going to be president. And that's okay. You have to accept where your part of the puzzle might be. And that's why it's so much more important to enjoy the journey than kind of linger or feel bad about maybe not getting to what the dream was. But because you had that dream, you got as far as you're getting. Like, you're on the journey that you're getting. If I had never wanted a Grammy, I wouldn't be in LA.
Well, I mean, as I say, it's not, for me, it's always, I tell people, it's not how you start. It's how you finish. Like, everything else in the middle is what's important. Like, what are you doing with the time? What are you doing in that journey? Are you going to stay in the same spot? Like, so for you, like, when it comes to making that jump, what advice, because I mean, I know so many artists who have came from Canada and either afraid of making that jump because they're like, oh, well, I don't have a visa, I don't have this, or like I don't know anybody, I don't know how to, you know, get my music out. What advice would you give someone who is an independent artist, new to the game but talented, who is thinking about making that jump to LA? What do they need to know first?
What you need to know first is you're going to have to check your ego at the door. Don't come, if you have too much ego, that you will be crushed if things don't go your way right away. And also, don't come if you're not ready to put in the work. Which is the number one thing that I tell people all the time. Right? So the way I did it, I started coming to visit first. And I'm lucky that I had my brother here. So I had a place to stay where I didn't have to, pay rent or anything crazy. I had a place to stay, and I came and I would just go to as many networking events as I could. I went to the ASCAP conference and I met as many people as I could. Hey, you want to write? Yeah, let's go to the studio. Yeah, let's go to the studio. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's link up and just hustle and meet people without expectations. Just with let me see where this takes me. So it's come here with an open mind. Come here, even if it's for 2 or 3 weeks. Like come here for the conference, like the ASCAP conference, like where there's an inbuilt networking event that you're around people that your peers, right?
Tell people about that conference. Tell people about this conference. What is it about?
So the ASCAP, if you're a songwriter, I guess. So the ASCAP conference, or even an artist, because artists can link artists, producers, managers. Everybody's at this conference, the ASCAP conference, or I think there's a BMI version, or there's all these conferences where there's panels and you're learning from the experts, and then you're around your peers, and there's networking events built in, and different like concerts and whatever. And that was the biggest, that was the smartest thing I did, was come to the ASCAP conference for several years in a row and just kept meeting people. And then when I would come back, I would hit them up, and when I would go back, I would stay in touch and come back. And not that I was perfect with it, but at one point I came for like 4 or 5 months. Okay. I worked it out so that I could come for 4 or 5 months. And I did what I had to do during the day, and every night I was out. Let me go check out this bar by myself. Like, even being a female in LA by myself, I would go out to
I love hearing
this open mic night here, or this pro jam here. And like, you start talking to people, oh, where else can I go? And this person would send me to this person, and then you start meeting this person. Hey, come to the studio with me. And then you just meet one person after another. And then I met the people that helped me get my visa. Like the producers that I needed, the letters that I needed, the lawyer that I used. Like, it just was one thing after another. And people here are nice. Like, if you're a cool person, I think that's what Matt was telling me, that with my personality, I wouldn't have a problem, because just nice. Like, I'm genuinely a fan of people. And
which is rare in LA.
They didn't feel like I was coming to try and get something from them. They felt like, oh, this girl is cool. She's just, let me help her out. And so be nice. It's just that simple. Like, don't come trying to get things from people. come and see how you can contribute. That's what I was doing. I'm like, how can I help you with what you're doing? How can I, even if it's just to come support you, let me come to the front of the stage, take a video on my cell phone and send it to you, because I know you need content. So now I'm giving you that. I'm being your fan. I'm cheering. I'm bringing my friends out, whatever. And then, 2 years might roll around, and it's like, hey, do you want to perform with me? Like, I had a guy that I was watching 2 years ago. Like, he's one of the lead singers for Prince's band, NPG, and he used to be in Color Me Bad. And he called me like a few days ago, because I reposted his show flyer that they're doing, like a whole tribute to Prince. And I reposted it. I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to come. Like, I was going to go as a fan. And he's like, you want to come sing with me on stage?
Wow.
And it's just like, so it's building these relationships and just being nice and being a fan of the people around you. And eventually you'll get that back. You'll get it. It'll come back to you. So that's what I would say.
What about the ones that, for example, like, about the visa, where they're like, I can't go because I don't have a visa. What do you tell them?
Well, if you're Canadian, you can come visit here for up to 6 months.
Should I tell people?
So you don't need you can't work, but you can come visit and you can come meet people. And, if your work situation, just figure it out. Like, instead of I didn't go on vacations. I saved every single penny I made in Toronto. I didn't spend it on vacations. I didn't have a very high living expense for as long as I could possibly do it. I just kept saving and spending on music. Even to the point where, like, when I came here, I didn't even have any money left. Because I just spent everything on music. But, like, you have to prioritize. If this is somewhere you want to be, like, figure out how to save up enough, make some friends, whatever, like, that you can come and be here for a month or 2 or whatever. And then, and what, like I said, even if you're only here for 2 weeks, just come and make use of those 2 weeks and go back, make your money again, come back. And then you'll see what you need for your visa. You'll see, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just come here, start making the connections. And then if it's meant to be, it'll all work out. That's the only thing I can say, is that for me, I came, I tried, and it worked. Took some time, but it worked.
And as you said, it's about patience, which is what a lot of people don't seem to understand when you get into this game. That has to be the number one thing, because if you don't have patience, you're going to crash and burn
And that's
real
where the ego
quickly.
thing comes in, is like your ego can really mess up your opportunities.
So for you, like, what, yeah, who was growing up for you, like the artists that influenced you, that where you're like, I think I want to do this for real?
Oh my God, there were so many. Alanis was a huge one because that album, Jagged Little Pill, was so epic. The songwriting, the musicality, and she was from Ottawa, right? So she grew up where I grew up. And so Alanis was definitely one of them. Alicia Keys is probably like my favorite person on earth. If I could be reincarnated as anybody, it would be her. Because she's so raw and she's so authentic and she's so talented, and her whole vibe is positivity. So as much as like my idols were like Mariah Carey, Michael Jackson, Whitney, Alanis, all that, but like I think the one that was like okay, I want to do this and I want to do it this way, was Alicia.
Okay. So what would you, for you, like if you could speak to your younger self now, what would that Farah, this current Farah, say to that younger Farah?
It's a good question because there's a few different things. One, if I look back on my life, I would just tell her that you're doing everything right. You work hard. You're just doing everything right. So stop not enjoying the process. Like, because if I were to show you 10, 15 years down the road, you will be almost exactly where you want to be. So I would have tried to enjoy the journey a bit more. And then the other thing would, well, I don't know. Like I was gonna say, like maybe just be more confident and believe in yourself more. I don't know that would have expedited the process, you know, because yes, in some ways I think it would have, but in other ways, like looking back, like I went to school, I was gonna go to med school, and then I didn't make the decision to leave med school because I had the confidence that I would be able to make it. I didn't. I just had such a strong impulse that I was willing to follow. So it was more courage than confidence. It was more resilience than focus, even.
Was your family supportive about that decision making when you made that? No?
No.
How do they
Because for
feel?
them it was like, why would you leave such a stable 6-figure career, first of all, just as a physical therapist? Why would and then going to med school and being able to help people in med school, because everybody knew that I was the kind of person that just wanted to help people, right? So for them it was just like, you can help so many people as a doctor, why do you want to do music? But nobody understood that I wanted to help people with that platform through music, because music helped me.
It's a healer, man. I mean, listen, music is the universal language of everything.
Without
like
music.
when we're sad, we listen to music. When we're happy, we listen to music. I mean, how many relationships have we been in that you can?
I wouldn't have been able to get through like the last 5 years of my life if I wasn't able to write songs and sing about it. It's just been so healing. My phone is so gonna die.
You want to go grab a charger and plug it in?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was plugged in, but then I guess it unplugged. But yeah. So
for you, how have you, and this goes back, I mean, as you said, the last 5 years, you know, I know when you being a beautiful woman, how has it been for you, like when it comes to even like say balancing a relationship on this journey in this business? Like, did you ever have a situation where, you know, the person was like me or the music, or having to make a decision of like putting the music first yourself and say, you know what, like this is my journey, this is my plan, and either you get with the fucking program or bye-bye? It's been challenging on a personal level because
as much as like music and this whole vision is super important to me, having a family has also been super important to me.
Okay.
So, and if it wasn't, then I would have easily been that person that didn't care about relationships or like cultivating any kind of partnership with somebody that I could eventually have a family with.
Okay.
And so for a long time, I didn't prioritize my relationships. I might have been in and out of them, but it wasn't a priority to me until I like kind of had to. And yeah, I've been in different dynamics, you know, some of which were like, I just can't prioritize you. I'm sorry. This is so important to me. And then, you know, it fizzles out because of that, to a dynamic of like somebody helping me with it, you know, and kind of being a part of the process, and or like I've been in situations with artists and it's just like competing priorities. I don't know. And then being an artist and being emotional and having a certain personality, like you know, it's just been like, you have to.
But you're like the
songs
perfect
to know my
package.
stories.
But I mean, I'm saying and that to me is exactly that. Like, I mean, like when you, and I'll tell people, like when you first meet you, you're extremely intimidating. Like your whole presence
Which
is just
so weird to me.
so
like people used
like,
to say that to me in Toronto. I'm like, I am the nerdiest, like weirdest person.
so that's the thing. But I didn't know that until, and when I saw a whole different side of you was at that premiere that we went to for Matt's film, and
Okay.
you were like completely dressed down. Like I had never seen you. I'd always seen you done up, the fucking dress, the fucking body, the everything banging, and I'm like, she's wearing like running shoes and casual shit, and I'm like, who is this woman? Like, who is this girl? And then it was like, because I mean, I remember like the first time Matt brought you around, I was like, who the hell is that? And he was like, that's Farah. And I remember, I just could stare. I was just like staring. I was like, she's so intimidating. Like, she has such a powerful. And me, I'm like you. Like I can talk to anybody, but you have this aura of, and don't take this the wrong way because it's actually a compliment. But you have an aura of greatness. You have an aura in the sense of like you almost want to go like, I'm not worthy to be in your presence. Like that's what you feel like when you are 5 feet from you, and then you don't. And you were. I remember when we met, you were really quiet at first. You didn't really say much. So I was like, you don't really know what to read. Like, is this person being a fucking bitch? Is she being standoffish, or is she just a quiet person? And then it wasn't until I think you did a video with it was something. It was some like app thing, the mute app. You were doing with a video with Matt and them, whatever, and you were like talking and you were, and that's when I really started to see like, I'm like, wait a minute, she is really like goofy and nerdy and like funny, like to see her hair get pulled down like in that way. And I think that's why for you coming into Los Angeles, and I've always said, real recognizes real, and when it comes to LA, when you're not from LA,
Yeah.
and you, as you said, are nice and you're genuine and you're kind, and as you said, even the most important thing, you're not approaching everything like, what can you do for me? But what can I do for you to make you better? And that's always been my blueprint. Like when I first came in the game and I met Sidney Pollack, who was my mentor, one of the most famous directors and producers in Hollywood. I didn't know this man from a hole in the ground. He was 70 years old. But I knew who he was. I studied his career before I came to LA. And I was like, the first day I had a chance to meet him, I was like, look, I don't want you to pay me, period.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to work for you. I don't care what I got to do. I don't care if I got to, clean the floors. Because I know that being around you, your knowledge is worth more than any paycheck.
Yeah.
And he could have blown me off. And it took about a month for him to say, hey, come into my office. And the first 2 years that I was in LA, trust me, this was the 90s. I was struggling, like sleeping in the car, having no place to live. But I was like, when you know yourself and you know that it's a journey. It's a process. This is part of the story. This is part of my story. I think you're frozen here. You hold on. I think you froze on me. Are you there? Yeah, you froze on me. Hold on a second. You froze. Hold on. Okay. I'm going to connect. We just lost her for a second, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to connect her back in. Okay. You're back.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was. Because to me, without struggle, there is no progress. And without progress, there is no success. And that's where I look at, for me, it's about having first about the relationships that you build. It's about having the right attitude, as you said, putting your ego in check, which a lot of people in Hollywood don't want to do, you know, because everyone's there for the same thing and everyone's there fighting and competing. But I'm like, this plate is so big. Doesn't matter what genre you're in, music, film, it's so big for everybody to eat off of. And if you eventually, and I always tell people, it's like, you've got to be like that ant in the corner. Or even say, not even ant, a cockroach. Because it's like, no, seriously, it's like when you have that one cockroach that's in the corner, it just sits there. It's just like, it's just chilling. And it's watching you do your shit and drop crumbs and breadcrumbs everywhere. And then what happens? When you walk away, it runs towards those crumbs. It fills its belly up. It absorbs all that digesting information. And then it waits until you drop some more crumbs. And then eventually, the more crumbs you break, the more things it eats, it eventually starts having babies and starts to develop. And next thing you have your whole house infested with cockroaches. It's the same like the business. If you have the right
Good
people,
analogy. I just wish you didn't have to use cockroach.
But it's true, because you have to understand, like, everything is about multiplication. So you can either multiply your circle with good people that have the same mentality that force you to level up, or you can have people that are around you that, exactly like cockroaches, they're useless, and you got to step on them and get rid of them. You know, and that's where I'm looking at you, like, you have that personality, which is what's made you gravitate towards the right people on your journey there, which to me is only going to help you, you know, grow exponentially, not just as an artist, but just in your goal set.
Like,
as a human.
That's the biggest blessing that taking this route has given me, is that I've just grown so much spiritually and as a human, that and I would say my personality, my outlook has all grown into somebody that can enjoy the journey.
So, like, what for you as an artist, what would you say as an independent artist has been the biggest struggle for you?
So I would say, like, and I don't know how, like, from my perception, it has been, I think people, like industry people, just don't know what to do with me, you know? Because, like, I'm Indian, I'm Canadian, I have this positive vibe and mindset. I'm kind of like anti the pop music industry, you know? So, like, you meet a black girl that can sing amazing R&B and can songwrite, and you know exactly where to put her. You know what songs to give her, you know what producers to put her with, you know what label to put her on, you know exactly how to market her because you've had templates, you know exactly, you know what to do with that. Me, I've been more of a world music, like international vibe, like warm and friendly, like not really into, you know, just singing about partying and sex and drugs and whatever, which is really what's dominated, you know, the charts and everything for a long time now. That's just not my vibe. It's not authentic to me. And on top of that, I'm like racially ambiguous, and you know, or if you know I'm South Asian and you know Indian, then there's that. So I feel like that's kind of been a struggle where people just didn't know where to put me.
I want to get onto that topic. And for you, like, do you feel, or have you ever been in a situation in the industry where you felt discriminated against or dealt with any type of racism on a situation, or felt that, that as an artist, because you're mixed, trying to figure out?
Yeah, I think it has come, definitely. But I was lucky that I've been shielded from the directness of it. Like Suge would get a lot of that stuff,
Okay.
And when he would meet with people or try to pitch us or whatever, like he would get a lot of the like, well, we don't know what to do with her. Well, she's Indian. Well, blah blah blah. Like, how old is she? This, that. She, like, so he kind of protected me from that to an extent. And here indirectly, and I don't know, like you never know, right? Because nobody's gonna come right out and be like, well, you're Indian, like the most I'll get is like, well, you're not 16 or like 19, which is the thing. I had to learn that like it's fine. Like I don't want to be on a label that wants a 16-year-old anyways. It's just not fit. So I think it's more so we just don't know how to brand you, as opposed to like any overt racism.
Okay.
Because I'm just different. Like I sound different, I look different, my vibe is different. So that's been a big struggle for me, is just figuring out then how to brand myself. Right?
Well, that's
I'm not
the
a
thing.
branding expert, but I've had to do a bunch of courses in branding and social media, and like I've had to study so much stuff outside of what I even ever wanted to just get as far as I've gotten now.
So if somebody could define you as an artist, like what category would you put yourself into?
Well, so that's what I finally started to zero in on before that episode of I Can See Your Voice, is like, okay, I'm going to go with my full name, which right away says that I'm not a white North American person. For Americans at least, it sounds a little exotic. It's like something international. You don't know if it's Persian or it's Indian or whatever. And then I was like, okay, what is my sound? For a long time, it's like, what is my sound? I was calling it pop R&B, but that was so general. And I'm like, no. A lot of people say like my voice is soulful, and my music is soulful. So it's like a soulful, but it's not R&B. I was also told you're not an R&B singer. You're not a rock singer. You're not a jazz singer. You're not this. You're not that. I'm like, okay, but then what? So I just decided, I'm like, I'm a soulful world pop artist. That's what I do. And that can cover now whether I do a pop song that has a bit more of an R&B feel, that covers my devotional stuff, which has more of a soulful pop feel, that can cover, anything dance hall-y or Latiny that I do. That covers everything that I want to do. Soulful world pop. Boom.
But where do you feel you're strongest, like out of those genres? What's your strongest, and where you've gotten the most, reaction from your fan base?
Well, that's the challenging thing. It's been all over the place. Like, when I did the first song with Chocolate, which was like a dance R&B thing, that got so much love. And then when I did the electro dance with Egyptian, so much love. So at first it was like that Caribbean vibe was getting a lot of love. Then I did like an acoustic version of Take Me As I Am, which was just vocals and piano. And everybody was like, oh my God, this is your lane, vocals and piano. And then like I just get so much different feedback from everybody. Like I could give you 10 songs and ask you which one's your favorite, and ask 10 different people what their favorites are. They'll all have different favorites. So there hasn't been a clear cut, consistent, like, this is you, this is you, this is you, this is you, this is you. And so that's where the branding becomes really difficult. And so that's been a huge struggle. And I think maybe it's just because maybe there isn't just one thing that is me. That's why I branched it out. I'm like soulful world pop. So, Shine is my favorite song that I've written. Because, like, lyrically, it's so intentional. Every single word was placed there for a reason. And it's meant to heal, and it's meant to evoke emotions. And when that thing is fully produced out, like, I want it to be, as big as Diamonds was,
Okay.
If I had to win a Grammy on one song, it would be Shine, you know, and it describes the whole Firefly thing and the warmth and the light and coming out of the darkness into the light. Like, it's just, that feels like it's me. You know, what the
I'm surprised you
production
haven't written a
around it
song
would
called
feel
Firefly.
like.
I'm
Sorry?
surprised you haven't put out a song called Firefly yet.
Well, because the thing is, like, I've been putting out songs like little by little since the episode aired, but I've been waiting for the right situation to come up, the right producer, the right marketing team, the right label, or whatever it is, so that you know, whoever's been putting effort into building this with me, we all get something out of it, you know.
And what's your goal for
and there's
Firefly?
different strategies to go through. So some songs I'm putting out, some I'm holding on to, and as every day and every month evolves, I'm kind of like figuring out what the next best step is.
Okay.
You know.
But what is
the biggest challenge for me has been branding.
That's been your biggest challenge?
I think so.
So for you, like for artists that are having that same type of, as you say, hurdle in regards to branding. I mean, I give you my advice, but what do you say to those artists that are going through that same struggle right now that you're trying to figure out? How do you get through those mental setbacks of yourself?
Try different things, like immerse yourself in different things. I think, you know, I've gotten this residency here at this place called The Village in the Westfield Topanga Mall, and I've been performing there pretty much every weekend, at least once, if not 2 or 3 times in a weekend, since July. And even before that, like, I had another residency in Culver City and whatever, and you know, what it taught me is that, like, I feel like my strength, not the only thing that I'm good at, but one of my strengths is like that 90s 2000s pop R&B vibe with a world music flair.
Okay.
You know, and that even when I sing my originals in the midst of all these amazing 90s R&B songs, or even like jazz songs, they all just fit in, like, with the way that I do it. So there's something like nostalgic about my sound and my tone, I guess, like even what you were saying. It's like a fresh nostalgia. It's not like modern, like Ariana Grande or you know, some of these females that are like SZA or whatever that are out now. It's definitely not that kind of modern and fresh, but it's like a nostalgic, maybe more like, I don't even know. Like, I even ask people, like, which artist do I remind you of? And everybody will say something different, or it's a very clear, I don't know.
So who do you think if you were a fan, not knowing you, like, who would you think you sound like, or compare yourself to?
In my mind, I obviously want to like lean towards like Alicia Keys or like Sia. Sia's my favorite songwriter, you know. But if I could say, oh, I want to be like somebody, it would be Alicia, you know.
See, to me, when I hear your voice, I get a vibe. Like, if I was to like really listen to your sounds, and which I do, but like really try to, because I mean, exactly what you said, you are a little bit all over the map in the sense of different genre, but that's just because you're so damn good. Like, it doesn't matter what you throw at you, you can kill it. But if I was to like make an ingredient and say, okay, which artist is her, it'd be a touch of Brandy mixed with Monica, mixed with Mary J. Blige. That's who I would make the ingredients of you, because you can go emotional, you can bring that smooth feeling of R&B like Brandy, but you can also talk about real shit like Monica. You know, and that to me is where, when you are an artist like that, and I always say to people, it's like, I don't even look at you as an artist when you have that, as you say, that different flavor of different things, because it means that you're like your own drug dealer right now. Like, you're taking your products and you're putting them on the street. One genre could represent crack, which is meaning the fact that that's the thing that people go, fuck, I love Farah for. I really like when I hear that sound. Like, I know what song, I know, like for me, I know there's certain songs where I'm like, yo, sing that song. Like, you did one tonight, and I was just like, that was the first time like I've been blown away before, but there was a song you sung tonight, which I'll talk to you about afterwards when we get off. You literally when I say brought it, but brought it in a way that I have not ever heard you. When I was like really listening, I was like, damn, she's good. Like I don't even think she understands how good she is, because I don't think you have been pushed to the point where you're like, as I said, life's a preserver. Like go out into the ocean and swim and just fight for your life right now in this moment. And I think and I mean, for you, like, for example, I know you have the greatest opportunity to perform for Wyclef. What was that experience like?
So it was at the ASCAP conference.
Okay.
He was a keynote speaker, and then he brought his kind of students, his mentees, on stage to kind of just jam.
Okay.
And so they did a couple of their songs together, and then he was like, "Does anybody else want to come up and jam with us?" And I was like, "I'll come." And I didn't even think about it. I just jumped up on stage. There was a few other people that jumped up on stage, and they were playing a groove. And at the time, I had been rehearsing for a Santana tribute.
Okay.
So the only song in my head in this time was Maria Maria. So I was on top of what they were playing. I'm like, Maria Maria, she reminded me of a West Side Story, growing up in Spanish Harlem. And I'm looking right at him. I'm like, oh my God, I'm singing White House song right now. But it was cool. Like he was chilling, and then it moved to the next person and the next person. So it was crazy, but it was awesome. It was like, oh my God, I just did that. And that was kind of like, your example of jumping up on a table in the mall, that was my moment to do that. Because if I had thought about it for 1 second longer, I'd have been like, oh, I'm not doing that. But I was like, I'm going, and I did, and it was cool.
What would you say has been the biggest like highlight or moment of your career so far to date?
Performing in Dubai. I've done a few big things. Like there's a big performance I did in Lisbon as I was part of the finale theme song, but it was with 4 other singers. Same thing in Dubai was the opening song with these big Bollywood producers. And then there's, the Sean Paul opening up for Sean Paul. And then there was Reggae Sumfest in Jamaica. So those were the 4 biggest moments. But I think Dubai was the most defining. First of all, it was the first time I'd really performed in front of a crowd of like 10,000 people. And then there was another like 50,000 online. And because I was on the song as well, people knew me. And I think that was the first time, again, I felt so authentic as myself as an artist. I was in with Farah, I was Farah, I sang like Farah, and it just kind of spiraled into this. It spiraled into like a lot of stuff in my devotional community, like my religious community.
Okay.
But I would say that's probably the biggest, most defining moment I've had thus far.
Jamaica. Someone Zulak Haq says, my place that. Big up. Yeah, but Jamaican.
Big up.
So for you, like, what is the next chapter for Farah? What is the goal that now you're out in LA, now you're living your dream, now you're putting in the work. What's the next biggest goal for you? What's the next thing you want to accomplish?
So it's threefold. What I'm going to be focusing on now is threefold. One is songwriting for Sync or for other artists or whatever. 2 is Firefly World, building Firefly World, building that brand, bringing it to life. Because that's going to be my legacy. Firefly World is really going to be my legacy. And if this whole entire journey led me to building Firefly World, then I'm happy with that.
And what was it for you? Like, what was the definition for you of why you started the Firefly situation?
Well, Firefly World is a brand. It's a community, an international community of people who want to shine as the brightest versions of themselves. Okay. So it's going to be a platform, an international platform and brand and community where people are supporting each other and looking for inspiration. And I'll be the main kind of like person behind driving it, but it's going to involve a lot of people and different artists and stuff that also want to spread positivity and share knowledge. So like even the episodes that I've been doing every week, it's about collaborating and sharing knowledge with each other. And just whatever industry you're in, but it's going to use music, art. I'm going to write some books eventually, do some speaking, but it's just gonna be this all encompassing. Like if you think of it as like an artist meets an influencer.
Okay.
Kind of thing, right? But it's not just going to be about me. It's going to be about everybody that's building it together. And you know, my goal is to have 100 million Fireflies, because I just see that as a tipping point of like what will make the world shine brighter. So that's what Firefly World is to me, and that's something that I want to build it to a point where like if I have a daughter, like she could take it over. Like these artists that I mentor now, they can take it over and just like push it to the next level when I'm gone. So that's my legacy. So right now my next steps are focusing on songwriting, focusing on Firefly World, and then just continue to keep writing music for me and my own music stuff and my own music endeavors and everything. So yeah, that's what's coming up for me.
I won't keep you much longer because I know you got to get up to your meeting, but I'll ask you a few questions and then we'll let you go. Name 3 words that best describe you.
Positive, spiritual, and let's see, positive, spiritual, and deep.
If you could learn the answer to one question about your future, what question would it be?
That's a good one. It would be, what am I here for? So that I can focus all my energies on whatever that path is, as opposed to trying figuring it out.
If time was to freeze for everyone in the world, but for one day, but Farah, what would that the first thing you would do?
Go somewhere really warm and just spend the whole day in the ocean.
What is something that you're obsessed with?
Sunshine.
What is your favorite way when you're not making music to waste time?
Sunshine. I mean, these are my PG answers, of course, but yeah.
Listen, this is X-Ray. You can say whatever you want on our show, man. What is the most relaxing place you've ever been?
I mean, it's got to be a beach somewhere. Yeah. I'm just like, I'm such a Pisces. I'm so attracted to the ocean and sun.
Okay.
That's really my happy place, my safe place. I obviously I love music and I'm obsessed with like writing and everything. But it's so much of it happens indoors that I start to feel kind of suffocated sometimes after a while. Mm-hmm. And then those times where I could just be up all night writing and creating and whatever, and like I don't even care what's happening in the world around me. But eventually, when I come up for air, I'm like, oh my god, I need air and water and sunshine.
Every artist has like their way of finding where they get their inspiration from, especially if you're a writer. Where do you find your inspiration from? Just
living. A lot of it, especially my own music, comes from like relationships.
Okay.
The ups and downs of relationships, and
I don't even honestly. Every time you say that, it doesn't make no sense to me because it just doesn't make any sense that you are such a catch. Any guy would kill to be with you, and how any of these guys, if they're even listening, if they happen to come across this, she may not say it, but I'm fucking saying it. You're an idiot. If you have this woman and you lost this woman, you're an idiot. That's all I'm saying. Off the record, this is Hot Topics, celebtv.com. I'm your host, DTEFLON on the MIC. Tonight, joining us on Hot Topics After Dark, the international recording artist, Farah Mitha, in the building. You can check out this podcast and this show if you miss it. In exactly 3 weeks' time, it will air on HotTopicsCelebTV.com. You can find us each and every Tuesday night, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and every Sunday night for Sunday service, Hot Topics, Hollywood actors, producers, directors in conversation. Each week, we'll be in conversation with some of the most influential Hollywood stars from film, television, and also each week, we have some of the most influential music stars, film stars, modeling stars from all over the world. And don't forget, this month, International Music Month for the Indie Music Week, we'll be having some of the most influential music independent artists from all over the world performing right here on Hot Topic Celeb TV. So, also, I want to ask you, right now on your playlist, pick one song that puts you in a good mood.
Ooh, James Brown, I Feel Good.
It's a very good song.
Mm-hmm.
So,
have it set as my alarm as well.
Say we're all on our phones now due to COVID, and everybody's using their phones more than often. Mm-hmm. So an app mysteriously appears on your phone that does something really amazing. What does it do?
Oh my God. It downloads every single skill that I want into my brain and body in minutes. I
like that. I really like that. How many pairs of shoes do you own?
Way more than I can count.
How many pairs of dresses do you own?
Like, I don't know. Maybe 20, 30, 20, 30.
When you first became a successful artist and you made that first bit of bank, what is the one most ridiculous thing that you own right now that you're like, I probably should never have spent my money on this?
I don't think I went too crazy. I think I was pretty good at reinvesting it into like music equipment or like wardrobe stuff or like content creation. I don't think I can't think of anything that I bought that was like ridiculous.
So there's nothing that you ever bought that you were like, I probably spent way too much money on this and I probably shouldn't have spent that much money on this, or regret buying it?
Maybe, but I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't think so.
You being a beautiful woman, you said your music has been about dating and relationships. What for you has been the funniest pickup line a guy's ever used on you? Even especially being in LA now.
Okay, so when they find out I'm Canadian, it's always like, oh, do you need to get married for your visa? Because you can marry me.
I'm sure you get
for your visa. That, yeah.
Okay. If you could call up anyone in the world right now and have 1 hour conversation with, living or dead, who would you call? Call anybody, living or dead, and have 1 hour conversation with them.
I think ooh. It's a tie between Einstein and Quincy Jones. Ironically, both of them, I share a birthday with both of them. They're both on March 14th. Yeah, if I can pick one from each category, living would be Quincy and dead would be Einstein.
Why Einstein? Why Quincy?
Because I'm almost leaning towards Einstein because he's dead. He had this really in-depth spiritual, scientific insight that I don't even think we have heard 5 or 10% of it. I think there's so much more that he knew that would unlock a lot of our potential that we just don't know.
So for you also, I want to ask you, you're also, say for example,